Letter 3. Hall. Morning room. Bookcases. Plants in pots. Squirrels, canary birds, parrots and macaws, monkeys, goldfish, and cut flowers. Drawing room. Dining room. I have just received your letter, enclosing a plan of your house and a sketch of its present appearance, and, I confess, it appears to me that you have not complained of its gloominess without having abundant reason for doing so. Pray tell your husband, however, that I fully sympathize with his reluctance to cut down trees that he has been familiar with from his boyhood, and that, so far from liking to see wood felled myself, I feel positive pain when even the large limb of a noble tree falls to the ground. But I think it a weakness to give way too much to this feeling, and, if I had a favorite tree that I was convinced was injurious to the health, or even to the comfort, of human beings, I would instantly have it cut down. In the same manner as I would submit, without hesitation, to the amputation of an arm or a leg, if I had sustained an injury that I was quite sure could not be cured in any other way. You say you felt excessively pained when your husband said that, though he did not think any circumstances could ever have induced him to order those trees to be cut down, he was quite delighted to have such an opportunity of pleasing you, and that, when you heard the workmen employed in cutting the trees down the following morning, you felt every blow they struck, and you thought he must hate you for wishing him to make such a sacrifice. These feelings are quite natural, but, in my opinion, the readiness with which your husband complied with your wishes will strengthen the bond of affection between you instead of weakening it, as there cannot possibly be a stronger proof of love than is shown in sacrificing our prejudices in favor of the beloved object. And I am sure, with your grateful and amiable disposition, you will be delighted to prove that you can make sacrifices in your turn, whenever a proper opportunity for doing so may occur. I am sure the removal of those trees will make the general appearance of the house increase in cheerfulness, and I can now only recommend you strongly to take care that your rooms are well ventilated, by the windows being always opened in fine weather, whenever the rooms are unoccupied, for, I repeat, though you laughed at my former assertion, that a free circulation of air is essential both to health and happiness. You ask, how is it possible that fresh air can contribute towards happiness? And I, in return, ask you, if you have never felt the influence of a fine clear bracing morning, in making you feel gay and happy, quite independently of moral causes. On such occasions, the bosom's lord sits lightly on his throne, and we feel equal to any exertion that may be required of us. Look at the contrast between country children, as they run shouting and laughing, only from the irrepressible glee of their own hearts, and the children of a close and overpopulated town, who creep from school shivering and sad, with countenances as dull as the appearance of the atmosphere they are compelled to breathe. You enjoy in the country the inestimable advantage of being able to procure as much fresh air as you like, only by opening your windows, but the inhabitants of towns, when they throw open their sashes, often admit air more impure than that already in their rooms. I will now give you my opinion as to the best method of furnishing your rooms, so as to make them look as cheerful as possible. I see by the plan that you have a good-sized hall, so that you will have room for playing at battledore and shuttlecock after all, and I repeat, that it is a game not to be despised, though you do speak so contemptuously of the transports that shuttlecock yields. I think you do wrong to treat with so much scorn these trifling amusements. It is the part of true wisdom to enjoy every harmless pleasure which falls within our reach, provided we do not occupy, by so doing, those hours which ought to be devoted to more serious employments. Thus, if you do not like battledore and shuttlecock, perhaps you may billiards, and your hall would do admirably for a billiard table. The small room on the right hand is your husband's business room, and it is very conveniently situated, as people who want to see him on justice business, or to show him dogs, or anything relating to sporting, etc., can go in by the side glass door, without entering the house. On the other side of the hall is the room you thought so gloomy the night you first arrived, and this I would advise you to fit up partly as a library, and partly as a morning sitting room. I see that one of the windows faces the east, and this you will find is in itself sufficient to make the room pleasant for a morning room, as you will have the rising sun upon it, and that always diffuses an agreeable warmth in a room, at a period of the day when warmth is particularly agreeable. I wish the other window looked on a flower garden, as it faces the south, and, now that the gloomy Scotch pines have been cut down, it would be just a little sheltered place where flowers would delight to grow, particularly if your husband would consent to remove a small cedar that I see still casts a shade upon it. However, we must not ask for too much at once, and till your flower garden is made, I would advise you to have a few plants in pots in the east window. Remember though, you must have only a few plants, as more than 5 or 6 would give the window the appearance of being a substitute for a greenhouse, a most unpleasant idea at any time, and particularly so in the country. 2 rather tall and spreading geraniums, with showy trusses of flowers, a fine well-trained Cilia heterophylla, a fine Polygala oppositifolia, and 2 handsome well-grown fuchsias, will be quite enough. They should be in large handsome pots, standing in saucers for the sake of cleanliness, and care should be taken not to fill the pots with earth higher than to within about an inch from the brim, so as to leave plenty of room for watering. The space left should be filled with water every morning, and the water suffered to run through the pots into the saucers, which, after waiting about 10 minutes, or more if necessary, so to allow as much water as possible to drain through the earth in the pots, should be emptied, as nothing can be more injurious to most kinds of plants in pots than to let water stand in their saucers. If a constant fire be kept in the room so that the air is always hot and dry, the pots in which the plants are kept should be set within other pots, and the space between the 2 filled with moss. This is also a good plan with plants in balconies, to prevent the roots of the plants becoming dry and withered. Plants in rooms always require a great deal more water than plants in a greenhouse, to counteract the dry atmosphere of a living room, and when practicable they should be set out in the rain or syringed overhead, to wash off the dust which, from sweeping the room and other causes, will inevitably rest on the leaves and choke up their pores, thus impeding the action of these very important organs. Air, also is as essential to the health of plants as it is to that of human beings, and both live by decomposing it. Thus, when plants are kept in a room, that room requires to be more carefully ventilated than would otherwise be necessary, as, though plants only absorb carbonic acid gas from the air, and set free the oxygen, which is the part required by man, that oxygen is not in a fit state to be breathed by human beings till it has been recombined with carbon. You say that all your rooms must be completely new furnished, and ask my advice as to the colors of the curtains, etc., in the different rooms. As it is desirable, if possible, to shake off the dislike you have taken to what I hope you will make your ordinary sitting room, and as that dislike has arisen partly from the gloomy dark green curtains and dingy tapestry on the walls, I would advise you to adopt only light colors in the furniture. First, the tapestry must be entirely removed, indeed you say it is already half decayed from age and damp, and I would then advise you to have the walls, if they are in a proper state, painted a stone color, or some similar tint, or, what will perhaps be better on account of the unpleasant smell of the paint, papered with paper of a similar color or some shade of buff. The curtains, I think, should be lavender-colored moreen bound with black velvet, and made in the French style, with inner curtains of white muslin. There should be 2 sofas, an easy chair or 2, comfortable footstools, and several small tables of different kinds, in addition to the ordinary chairs and tables, and I should add a chiffonier and a cabinet piano. You can, if you wish to be economical, have brown holland covers to the sofa and chairs, and you can pin plain white muslin over the silk of the piano and the chiffonier, to save them from the flies. The carpet may be Brussels, or Kidderminster, or a printed drugget, the first of the 3 being far the most expensive. The Kidderminster carpet and the drugget are nearly alike in price. Whatever the material of the carpet may be, the colors should correspond with those of the furniture and the walls. As your books will be in daily use, they will be best in open cases with a little curtain of leather nailed along the shelves to keep out the dust. Should the books not stand high enough to fill the space for them, the housemaid may remove the dust with a goose's wing, or with one of those brushes with long hairs now sold for similar purposes, but do not let her take the books down oftener than twice a year, as frequent removals will not only injure the binding of your books, but will occasion you great annoyance, from the confused manner in which they are sure to be replaced on the shelves. I know you were always fond of pets, though you never kept any, as your aunt did not like them, but now you are your own mistress. I think it very likely you will have a canary bird and perhaps a parrot, and some goldfish which you will keep in your morning room. I would not advise you to keep a squirrel, on account of its unpleasant smell in a cage, and its hiding propensities out of one, though in other respects they are pretty little creatures from their gracefulness and agility, and the intelligence that sparkles in their bright little eyes. If you do keep a squirrel, feed it with some bread scalded in hot water, and plenty of nuts, and take care that its cage is cleaned, its hay changed, and its tin for food washed out with hot water, every day. Your canary bird, if you have one, should be kept scrupulously clean, and the bottom of its cage should be strewed with clean sand every morning. It should also have fresh water every day, both for drinking and bathing, the latter being in a shallow vessel. In the molting season a small bit of iron may be put in the water for drinking. But no other medicine should be given. Its food should be as simple as possible, and should consist principally of summer rape seed, that is, those small brown rape seeds which are produced by plants sown in spring, and are ripe in summer, and not that sown in autumn and reaped in spring, which is large and black. A little chickweed in spring, lettuce leaves in summer, endive in autumn, and slices of sweet apple in winter may be added, and occasionally a few poppy or canary seeds, and a very small quantity of bruised hemp seed. But this last should be given as a great treat, and only sparingly. All sugar, bread, and other delicacies are very injurious. It must never be forgotten that birds kept in cages are in a most unnatural state, and that they require the greatest care to keep them in health. 3 things should be especially attended to, viz. Cleanliness, simple food, and abundance of fresh air. This last particular may appear strange to those who know that the canary bird, being a native of a warm climate, is easily injured by cold, so much so indeed, that in winter its cage should never be hung in a room without a fire. But, notwithstanding this, it should have the windows of the room open frequently when the sun shines, even in winter, and in summer it should be kept as much as possible in the open air. The poor little creature shows its own feeling on the subject indeed very distinctly, for, as soon as it is placed near an open window in the sunshine, it begins to bathe and to preen its feathers, and then it sings gaily its loudest songs of joy, frequently fluttering its wings at the same time, as though from a sensation of intense enjoyment. The cage for a single canary bird should never be less than 8 inches in diameter and a foot high, with sticks placed across it at different heights for the bird to perch on. Parrots, macaws, and cockatoos thrive best on a pole with a stand at the bottom for sand, as their tail and wing feathers generally become ragged when they are kept in a cage. Some grey parrots and blue macaws are very apt to pull out their breast feathers, but this is the result of a disease brought on by eating too much meat. The same cause also brings on gout in the feet, and other complaints. All the parrot tribe are hard-beaked birds, and consequently not carnivorous. Their food in their native country is grain and fruit, and their habits in this respect should always be kept in view in feeding them, for though birds in confinement are in an unnatural state, and require more indulgences than they would need if wild in the woods, yet they should never have food given to them, which their organs are quite unfitted to digest. Parrots and other similar birds should therefore be fed as much as possible on ripe fruit, boiled wheat or Indian corn, and milk, or, if these articles be not attainable, bread or captain's biscuit soaked in boiling water, with enough milk added, to enable the bird to drink, will be found the best substitute. Bird fanciers use generally bread made without salt, and very well baked, crumbled into water and then slightly squeezed, but the birds get very thin if kept for a long time only on this diet, and require a little milk, though that is a food they certainly never can have in their natural state. Bechstein says that they will get fat on the seed of the safflower, Cartliamus tintorius, and indeed, these seeds are called by the French, grains de perroquet. Though the parrot tribe are not carnivorous, they are all very fond of a bone to pick, and it is said that they may be indulged with one occasionally, provided there is no fat and very little meat on it. Parrots should be supplied every day with clean water to wash, and their feet should be frequently examined and cleaned from any dirt that may be adhering to them. Should you take a fancy to a pet monkey, Most of the common kinds are kept chained to a pole on a stand, and fed like parrots, but marmosets, which are pretty little creatures, are very tender, and are generally kept in a cage like squirrels. They will eat animal food, and one that was at liberty is said to have snatched a goldfish out of the water, and devoured it. The most interesting circumstance relating to them is, however, their fondness for their young, which is nursed by both the male and female like a baby. Gold and silver fish are very ornamental, and suitable objects to keep in a lady's morning room. It is generally supposed that they are quite incapable of affection, but some that we have certainly knew me again when I came back after having been out of town, and one, which I call Goldie, and which we have had 4 or 5 years, will come and nibble my finger when I put it into the water. I take care of these fish myself, and keep them in a glass globe during the day, and in an earthen pan at night. I do this that I may be quite sure their water is changed twice in the 24 hours, as, when I am indisposed, or very much occupied, I might perchance forget them at night, were I not reminded of their wants by seeing them still in their glass globe. I never suffer any food to be given to my fish, save what they find in the water. Bread is decidedly bad for them, and one that I was very fond of was killed by my maid Susan, giving it flies. I always take care that my fish have river or pond water, as spring water is too cold for them, and often contains some mineral which would be injurious, and I keep them in a room with a fire during the winter, though they appear injured by too much heat. However, notwithstanding all the care I take of my fish, I have lost a great many, particularly since I have kept them during the day in a glass globe. Formerly, when I kept my fish in a china vase, of oblong shape during the day, and in an earthen pan at night, they were remarkably healthy, and I only lost one in 5 years. But, within the last 6 months that I have had a glass globe, I have lost 4. It is true that the year 1845 appears hitherto to have been very unfavourable for goldfish, as a great many have died, even in ponds, where they are generally much more healthy than when kept in rooms. In one instance, also, I have been informed that nearly 20 have died in the marble basin of a fountain, where fish had been kept for years with an average of not more than 2 or 3 deaths in a year. I cannot at all account for the death of my fish, who were all attacked in the same manner, swimming on one side, but bent so as to form an almost rigid anode in the water, and generally dying a few hours after the first attack. In many cases, however, the cause of death is evidently a plant nearly allied to the green scum formed on stagnant water. This plant, which is called Achilla prolifera, consists principally of threads so exceedingly fine as to be imperceptible to the naked eye, and probably arises from the water continuing too long unchanged. When it has continued some time, it appears like little tufts of cotton wool on the gills and tail. No remedy appears to have been discovered, but keeping the fish in rain water is said to prevent the appearance of the plant. As you are fond of having flowers in your room, and as your present garden is so far from your house, you will perhaps be glad to know how to preserve cut flowers as long as possible. The most simple rules are, not to put too many flowers in a glass, to change the water every morning, and to remove every decayed leaf as soon as it appears, cutting off the end of the stems occasionally, as soon as they show any symptoms of decay. A more efficacious way, however, is to put nitrate of soda in the water, as about as much as can be easily taken up between the forefinger and the thumb, put into the glass every time the water is changed, will preserve cut flowers in all their beauty for above a fortnight. Nitrate of potash, that is, common saltpeter, in powder has nearly the same effect, but it is not quite so efficacious. The drawing room should be fitted up with more elegance than any other room in the house. The walls may be panelled, and the panels filled in with fluted silk, with a gilt moulding round them, or the walls may be covered with flock or satin paper, with a gilt moulding under the cornice. In either case the cornice should be rich, and there should be bosses on the ceiling, to indicate the place for the chandeliers, if you have any. A slight degree of conformity between the style of the furniture and that of the house is, I think, advisable, but, as your house appears to have had additions made to it in different reigns, almost any style of furniture that suits your own taste may be adopted without incongruity. There should be several large looking glasses, 2 or more chandeliers, and against the walls there should be a few choice cabinet pictures, which should be characterized by delicacy and beauty rather than force. A Claude or two, some of Guido's exquisite female heads, and one of Raphael's Madonnas, would be very suitable, but no picture should be admitted unless its subject were pleasing. There should be large mirrors in panels, or in richly gilt frames, and a very handsome white marble chimney piece, as I see there is but one indicated in the plan, with a very rich-looking steel grate, made low to show an ornamented back. I suppose the windows near the fireplace are false ones, as otherwise there would be a cross light. The 3 windows opening on the terrace are, however, quite sufficient to give light to the room, and that at the south end I should like to see opening into a conservatory. I scarcely know what color to recommend for the hangings of the walls. Crimson is very becoming to female beauty, and it has besides the advantage of being in perfect keeping with the character of a drawing room in an old mansion. The curtains should be silk or silk damask, and made with either a piped valance or very deep gold fringe, and the inner muslin curtains should be trimmed with silk fringe of the same color as the outer curtains. The chairs should correspond, and should have a great deal of gilding about them. The carpet should be Wilton, and made in one piece, of a pattern to fit the room, and this pattern should consist chiefly of flowers. There should be several sofas and ottomans and ornamental footstools, an excellent piano, and a harp, ornamental screens to correspond with the style of the curtains, consoles with richly gilt frames, and looking-glass slabs brackets for ornamental china. Candelabra for lights, an elegant ormolu clock, and in short a variety of articles that will suggest themselves. Only take care not to crowd the room too much, lest you should give it the air of an upholsterer's warehouse rather than a drawing room. The dining room should be characterized by the massive appearance of its furniture, and the richness of its hangings. The curtains may be of maroon-colored cloth, or moreen, trimmed with gold. The carpet should be Turkey or Axminster, and should not quite cover the room, but leave a part to be rubbed bright or painted. You should have a large handsome chimney piece, and a large grate, so contrived with a plate at the bottom, as to contain wood as well as coal. Some persons advise having no light in a dining room, except from one large chandelier hung just over the dinner table, but sufficiently high above it to cast no shade. While others recommend side lights to show the pictures, if there should be any, on the walls. If there are, they may be of quite a different character from those in the drawing room, and of more solemn and serious subjects, though still not painful ones, and they may include pictures of the Dutch masters. Your dining room is very conveniently placed in being so near the kitchen. And it is also convenient to have folding doors opening into both the dining and the drawing rooms, placed exactly opposite each other. The passage, or vestibule between them, may easily be made ornamental, and I should advise filling the end next the window with greenhouse plants in flower. These will also have a good effect from the hall, and, in addition to them, the vestibule may contain a bust or some choice piece of sculpture. You must remember that, notwithstanding anything I may have said, the furniture and decorations of the rooms must depend principally on your own taste. I can do no more than point out what kind of style is suitable to the different rooms, and you must do the rest.